Well, hello, that's me again. Today is October 22, 2023. It's the end of the weekend. It's Sunday. It's around noon here in Seattle. And let's start with the issue of which I cannot avoid. Obviously, it's the issue of the Israel and Arab conflict, which is becoming generally Arab conflict, but primarily with the Palestinians. And I want to immediately make a comment because I'm getting a little bit tired of listening to all kinds of people, which is understandable. I understand people are on a very emotional high right now, and there are many divergent opinions. And for some reason, some people expect me to take the side here of the Palestinians or Israel, and saying that, you have to kind of, pretty much show your colors. And some of it came down to some guy yesterday wrote that, you don't like Islam. So let me comment on that. Yeah, I don't like Islam. I also don't like Buddhism, or I have issues even with the Christianity, in the sense that I'm my own man and I have the right to like or dislike something as much as I can. And fact is, for people who do not understand what culture is, and for example, while I live in the United States and not, for example, in Pakistan, it's not economic issue. You can find actually there, well, like Saudi Arabia, which is extremely wealthy. So, but I wouldn't live there even if they would pay me. And it's so simple because I do not profess Islam. I don't like it. I have reasons not to like it, but it doesn't mean that I have reasons not to respect very many wonderful people of Muslim faith. And fact is, I have friends, and I can tell you even more, I have relatives by law who are Muslims, wonderful people. I admire them profoundly. So, I mean, what kind of this operation I'm talking about here is basically people who cannot control their emotions, and as I already stated, we are into the atrocity porn cycle, which will be, of course, produced by both sides, Israeli and Palestinian. Is Israel committing now the basically crimes against humanity and war crimes in Gaza Strip? Oh, absolutely. And it has nothing to do with Islam or whatever, Judaism for that matter, for me. For the guy who sits here and try to educate you on some issues, of course with my own personal slant. I cannot be 100% objective, pardon me. So, and that's when some people comment, oh, you don't respect Israel, oh, you don't respect that and this and that. Well, I mean, I don't respect Israel in the sense that, I mean, I look at the Likud party and these are fanatics, basically. Same goes for Hamas. So, but the point is, Palestine and Palestinians, they have the right for normal life. And they have the right for the peaceful skies above them. They have the right for having their own state. Simple as that. And if anybody wants some kind of mantras, repeating constantly, oh, Israel bad and Palestinians good, I mean, I already told you, there are no good people among Likudniks and Hamas. They worth each other, and that's what happens. And while simple people, civilians suffer. And that brings us to the issue of which I'm really sick and tired talking about it. And it's understandable, but the point is, you have to understand actually what in a global sense it's all about. We are looking at the tragedy which is happening, and this is a tragedy of Palestinians. It's horrendous tragedy. Which is happening now at the square mileage of 145 square miles. You have actually 1,000 kilometers or 700 miles long front, and I mean slaughter on unimaginable scale, for example, which Russians conduct at this very moment in the special military operations. But of course, Israel and Palestinian issue is so long, it is so entrenched now into the larger geopolitical picture that of course people pay attention, extremely, focused attention on it. But eventually, as I already stated, if Israel, which is now delaying its ground offensive, so to speak, and we know that Mr. Biden, no less, also asked him, as New York Times actually reports, You can see yourself that Biden and aides advise Israel to avoid widening war with Hezbollah strike. And they also not only are afraid of that, they also afraid, obviously, of, and as they explain, is that the U.S. officials are concerned that some of the more hawkish members of Israel war cabinet have wanted to take on Hezbollah even as Israel begins a long conflict against Hamas after October 7. U.S. officials believe Israel would struggle in a two-front war and that such a conflict could draw in both United States and Iran. The militias may support it. We're talking about Hezbollah, but they also don't want Israel to go on the ground, at least not yet, because of the issue of the hostages, which Hamas today promised to release American hostages specifically. By the way, that's your answer, guys. Hostages. What hostages means? It means pure and simple terrorism. So again, as I already stated, there are no good people on both sides in this respect. And we can sit here and discuss military political implications and ramifications of all that. But please, if you want me to repeat those mantras that Israel bad and Palestinians good, which essentially, I mean, Palestinians have the right for their state and they have the right for their struggle. I mean, please find some other resource and go there. The people who will be emotionally high, they will be just basically, you know, as how to put it polite, I mean, as well, I will just use again the same term, atrocity porn. Yes, civilians die, and it's tragedy. And it's tragedy which I cannot even describe enough for you how important this tragedy is to be exposed. But again, some people don't understand when they cross into completely irrational territory. And that brings us not only from the point of view of the New York Times, the Biden administration being afraid of their hostages, American hostages being killed, in if Israel goes for the ground operation there, which they promise they will, but I mean, believe me, that's going to be complete, I mean, bloodshed there, and they will sustain serious losses. But the point is, if you go and read my very good friend Larry Johnson, what he wrote wonderfully about war in Ukraine versus war in the Gaza Strip, and he talks about benchmarks. And this is a wonderful piece of writing, and especially a wonderful piece of the geopolitical analysis, the way usually the real military and intelligence professionals do. And he writes there, as I analyze the two wars underway, my practice is to look for similarities and disparities. I want to suggest that the war in Ukraine provides a benchmark for evaluating what is unfolding in Gaza. And then he goes to elaborate on this and compare the issue of the civilian victims. And both during the incredibly more massive, I mean, order of magnitude more massive military operation by Russia, and what Israel is doing by bombing civilians into oblivion. And here's what Larry writes in the end. And this is what really I, for example, concentrate my opinion and focus on, is that he writes, it is one thing to call for cooler heads to prevail. What worries me is that emotions are so inflamed, which I continuously try to stress, on both sides of the issue, that the chances of finding an off-ramp are diminishing with each passing day. We may be on the verge of witnessing a debacle like the 1956 Suez Crisis, also known as the Second Arab-Israeli War, but on a far more massive and deadly scale. If it comes to that, I fear that the United States, like the United Kingdom in 1956, will emerge weaker and permanently damaged. Its status as the preeminent superpower for shepherding events in the Middle East could be demolished. Those are the stakes, and I subscribe to every single word in Larry's conclusion. This is what is this all about. And of course, when we have suddenly those people who is the Minister of Defense of Israel, and in his interview to Daily Mail, he says that Israel vows to cut off the head of the snake and launch a military attack against Iran if Hezbollah joins the war with Hamas. And Israel last night vowed to cut off this head, so to speak, and launch a military attack against Iran. If Tehran-backed terror group Hezbollah joins the war, it's Mr. Nir Barkat, Israeli Minister of Economy, warned that basically, and speaking to Daily Mail. Well, as you may expect, it is the Middle East, and all sides there, they love hyperbole, they love exaggeration, they love ornamentation about in their phrasing, which, by the way, drive also very many people absolutely nuts who do not understand what is behind those stages. I have news for you. First, Israel cannot really cut the head of Iran for a simple reason. Iran is so much larger, and it has a very sophisticated military, and there are 1,200 kilometers which separate Israel from Iran. So the only thing Israel can do is to launch some missiles, whatever it has. They have some cruise missiles with the alleged range of about 1,500 kilometers, but that's about it. They will have even problems of basically navigating their air force to conduct strikes against a very sophisticated air defense of Iran. And then, of course, Iran has, as I already showed many times in previous videos, has a very extensive, a very formidable missile, operational, tactical, operational purely missiles, which, my gosh, I mean, I don't think so Israel has any means to prevent those hitting the military and even civilian targets in Israel. So it is all bloviations and pathos-ridden phrasing, but truth is, I don't think so. Netanyahu doesn't understand. He understands, I think, so that in what dead end he ran himself with his policies of Likud party and his aggressive, essentially, well, I mean, let's put it this way. In many respects, basically what Palestinians live in Gaza Strip, it's essentially a sort of concentration camp, and Israel was maintaining it, and they just don't like Palestinians. They want, as I already stated, ethnically cleanse them and then have this part to themselves, you know. So, but he isn't pickle, or as brilliant my friend Garland Nixon stated, Israel is in deep kimchi. And this is, I mean, absolutely hilarious and so true. And so when we look at this, I mean, where do we go with all that? United States, obviously, being especially U.S. Congress and, well, pretty much most politicos in Washington being in the pockets of all kinds of ethnic lobbies, and most important of them being American-Israeli Political Action Committee, AIPAC. So they, yeah, sure, they want to support Israel. And, of course, media are just absolutely, American media absolutely go bananas describing how great Israel is and how they really have been kind of forced into this. So I don't know where we go. I care only in this particular respect about how China and Russia sit back, and they will be there, so to speak, you know, objective observers, and if need be, they will be brokers. But again, you know what, it's such a complex issue, which obviously revolves around also the oil, you know, supplies of gas, the strategic things of this nature, economic, which influence obviously the fate of the decline in Europe. And that brings us obviously to the fact that, how to put it, it's you need to go back and look at the larger picture. I will be constantly you know, stressing this out, pointing your attention towards a larger picture, despite obviously the tragedy in Gaza Strip, which we have to keep our eyes on. But here it is, and I will show you something. This is a French flag, as you can see yourself. It has the blue, well, it's dark blue or just standard blue, white and red stripes. Then this is Russian flag. As you can see yourself, it also has red, white, and blue stripes, although the blue is slightly lighter kind of, you know, shade, but still, this is they are not the same flags, as you might understand. One belongs to the Russian Federation, another belongs to France. Then we can take a look at this. This is Soviet airliner, very good aircraft, IL-62, beautiful plane, I love it. I mean, and now if we go and look further, this is, however, VC-10, Vickers VC-10, which of British Airways. And as you can see yourself, like French and Russian flags, they have very many similarities. For example, the scheme of the location at the tail of the four engines, and they seem to be very close to each other, right? Similar. But truth is, the same as the flags of France and Russia, VC-10 and IL-62 are two dramatically different airplanes with only one commonality. It is the scheme, aerodynamic scheme, how it is done in terms of locating the engines, and that's where the similarities end, because, as I already stated, they are dramatically different aircraft, different engines, different landing gear, different avionics, different APU, everything is different except for the basically outward similarity. Now, if you look attentively at this, this is Soviet supersonic passenger plane, which is Tu-144, obviously called by the stupid people Konkorsky, except for the fact that it flew much significantly earlier than British French Concorde. But look at this. This is Tu-144. This is actually French British Concorde. As you can see yourself, people say, oh, they look the same. That is why some basically specialists in propaganda, they love to call it Konkorsky, for example, a Russian plane. The problem, of course, as again, with the exception of their supersonic flight, we are dealing here with two dramatically different aircraft. They were dramatically different. They had different history, but they also had a significantly different design. Outward similarity is not in and of itself is testimony to anything. It could be the general approach to the aerodynamics, for example, in case of the aircraft. But the truth is, I mean, if you build the aircraft carrier, inevitably you will have the, as they called, I mean, lovingly in US Navy, called flat tops. You will have to have the flat top on the aircraft carrier because you need to land and, launch the combat aircraft from its deck. So generally the scheme will be the same. You will have the flat top, basically, and aisle, the superstructure, which will be moved to the right, or maybe two superstructures. But the point will be there will be similar looking ships. They will differ obviously with the propulsion, combat informational control system, in terms of the catapult, in terms of the whatever, everything. But they will look the same. But evidently, and as I already stated, considering the fact that basically American journalists and people who basically provide the so-called info to them are morons, and we're talking about from American intelligence community and Pentagon, which is primarily, well, propaganda, basically. So, but when you have the American journalists and so-called specialists, and again, I don't know many serious military intelligence specialists, at least in the public sphere. I'm sure there are people like this who are still good enough in some places in Pentagon or CIA and what have you, who are competent enough, but they don't go out and speak, openly and publicly. But however, whatever we have publicly in our media sphere, in the combined West, and specifically in the United States, 99% of it is absolute trash. I mean, those people are stupid beyond belief. Enough to take a look at Mr. Petraeus or General Keane and all kinds of those people who have no idea what they're talking about. And here's the thing why I was talking about the similarities between flags and aircraft. And here we have this news. So the news is this. Suddenly, we have that. Ukrainians using Russian chips for drones, media report. Well, guess what? we have this drone, one of many Russia produces. Russia produces a huge number, up to 100,000 a month, all kinds of drones and, unmanned aerial vehicles from strategically operationally capable, such as, for example, Orlans or things like that, or, of course, so-called loitering munition, really. And it's called Geran. And here we have, suddenly Russians get the hold of one of the Ukrainian drones, and they see that the repurposed navigation component used in the Ukrainian drone was identified by utilized in Geran 2 drones. The module is said to be located in the wing sections of the Russian section of the Russian loitering munition and usually survives impact. The Kometa, which produces this, by the way, chip, yes, microchip, yes. The Kometa is said to use the Russian satellite navigation system GLONASS for setting the course of the drone. I understand for any fanboy who makes money by BSing a bunch of the other fanboys on YouTube, explaining to them that, and quoting, for example, Mrs. Frau von der Lugen, that actually Russians use the chips from the washing machine. Actually, it's other way around, that Ukraine is trying to salvage that. And here is the most important thing. This is what we see. Kiev and its Western backers have repeatedly claimed the drones are actually of Iranian origin, pointing out the striking similarities between Geran 2 and Shahid 136. Well, let me ask you a question. Why do you think they say that? Because obviously Iran provided some, few drones for Russians to look at. Why do you think they say this? Because obviously we have to go back to the narrative. And the narrative, which by the way is supported by majority of American journalists, most of whom are morons. They never studied anything except for useless some PR and, well, it's basically the glorified English language course and study. Is the fact that Russia is so backward that, as you already know, Ukrainians say that Russians, go into Ukrainian houses and take their toilets, because they evidently, Russians never knew what toilets are, and they go to the Ukrainian villages and they are struck by this advancement. Then, of course, we have Frau von der Lugen, you have all kinds of those jackals from European Union and others saying that Russia is so backward, it's totally dependent on their basically chips from the West. Well, I have a news for you, of course, and I've been on the record for many months and years now that Russia produces her own chips, actually. And that's what Ukrainians now try to utilize from the wings of the Russian drones. But of course, the other thing, which is, again, for all those fanboys who think so, that pushing buttons on, or whatever they call it, on iPhone is somehow makes them technically savvy, that's, again, as I already stated, primarily most core of American journalists and, well, other journalists too, is the fact that you have to look attentively at what GLONASS is. Yeah, people still think that Russians use GPS. Well, I have news for them. Russia, and namely Soviet Union, was the second after the United States, and it was very close in time, who launched the satellite navigation. And it was in 1970s, and in fact, is in early 1970s. And of course, GLONASS has its origin and genesis, so to speak. It's in 1982. It has been developed, and here is the issue. Yet another narrative which talks about the fact that Russians, cannot do anything without Western technology and Western microchips, what have you, electronics. And I have news for them. Russians do not need this anymore. And here is, for example, about GLONASS, which is don't go looking there for the data on GLONASS in terms of accuracy. It is extremely accurate. That is why it allows to guide actually Russian cruise missiles with a very high precision. But it's the point that if you can go and look up the history of GLONASS, you will see yourself what it is. It is extremely advanced, not only navigation, but also recon system. But here it is. And to basically explain to you why we look at the people who are absolutely stupid. And here it is. This is on August 7th. I will translate it for you. On the 14th of August, actually on the 7th of August it was reported, on the 14th, Roscosmos confirmed yet another newest GLONASS K2 satellite, which has been placed into orbit. You will not find this data in any way in the Wikipedia or anything, because it's all cuts out something like 2019, 2022. But what it is, with the launch of the GLONASS K2, it's the start of the deep modernization of this global positioning system, and what is most importantly, which is actually never reported, it is completely Russian-made satellite. Everything from sensors to microchips to electronics and everything. And they still don't get it. They still don't get it. They're stupid. I mean, they don't understand that actually Russians laugh at them like idiots, because they don't understand that Russia produces practically everything she needs. If she needs something which she needs in more advanced, some boutique type technology, Russia can always produce. But if need be, there is always good old China, which is happening right now. And as you can see yourself, Russia to become China's second biggest trade partner, Rosneft boss, Mr. Sechin, speaks about. Moscow is on course to become Beijing's largest foreign trade partner after the US. And the Russian-Chinese trade will surpass $200 billion by the end of this year, which is pretty much, a few months, really. And the point is that many people do not understand that, again, you have to understand who is the average graduate of the journalism school in the West, or in Russia for that matter. They know nothing. They can do only what is called the outwardly compare looks. And they don't understand how things work. They don't understand what goes into things to work. And so when people say that, oh my gosh, Russia is definitely, supplying China with primarily, carbohydrates like gas and oil. Well, sure, but if you look attentively at the latest data on the Rosstat or other, for example, organizations which continue to basically observe the Russian exports, actually the growth of resources, or non-crude export, grows dramatically, and Russia continues to export and expand her exports in the high value added products. And do not forget, crude is one thing, but suddenly the very complex oils for the engines are completely different story. Russia does this. Russia just signed the 25.7 billion contract between herself and China in terms of grain. And but it's not only that. Food products, food stuff, machinery, and not to speak about extremely high level, high technology things like weapons or space technologies. Russia all produces that, and she exports it. And that brings us to other thing, which is, how to put it politely, I really don't think that there are normal people left in London in the top echelon. But look at this. Here we have the Ministry of Defense of UK, and they, of course, they pull it out of their own asses. And of course, their intelligence update is made completely out of the BS. You have literally people who graduated Sandhurst, which doesn't provide any serious military education, because you cannot prepare military professional in the whatever 7 or 17 weeks which you go to the Sandhurst. So you have all those literature or journalism or what have you history guys. They put you into this thing, and yeah, there you go. You have those generals who won't be able to command the squad or platoon in Russian military, and you have they saying that recent Russian assault in Avdiivka have contributed to a 90% increase in Russian casualties recorded by the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense. That's your intelligence. Lack of intelligence. Russians are openly laughing at British and their military military, this is pathetic. But hey, they continue to do this intelligence updates. And look at this, look what they say. It's likely that Russia has suffered 150,000, 190,000 permanent casualties. So what can I say? I mean, London already lost any kind of sense of honor, of decency, and so it reflects pretty much on the defense ministry. I'm not sure they have many good professionals there anymore. And again, when you look at the programs, how they prepare some their officer corps, really, it's pathetic. And United Kingdom already is economically and militarily is a pipsqueak. It's the second, if not the third temple nation, which even its former colony, I mean, come on, I mean, India looks for all India's problems. I mean, it looks at, technologically, it looks on United Kingdom with like, yeah. And by the way, Indians are preparing to launch the first manned space mission. Try to ask British to do that. They will have their economy, bottom falling out or falling off. And this is not only that. Then, of course, we have the other people of this nature, like Mark Galeotti. Mark Galeotti, oh my gosh, the guy, so he comes out and says that, yeah, ATACMS missiles alone won't change the game in Ukraine. Fairly obvious, I know, but my thoughts in Spec Coffee House about why we should abandon this periodic habit for calling any individual system a game changer for Ukraine. Well, yeah, good for Galeotti, but Galeotti, actually, military political analysis is the third rate, as you would expect with the guy with his background. And the question is not that ATACMS alone, which are absolutely not a surprise, but because if you look attentively at Galeotti, what he is a British historian, lecturer, and writer on transnational crime. And this is where he should have been staying with his writing about transnational crime, about Russian mafia. But when people like that, who graduated basically School of Slavonic and East European Studies and historian, and basically a senior associate with the RUSI, Royal United Service Institute, which only recently noticed, despite good and profound warnings from me for many years, that actually any serious war is industrial war. But yeah, this is the type of people who come out there, write all this garbage, pretending that they understand anything about strategy or how, for example, modern military technology works. They don't. Make no mistake, they do not know how it works. So what do you expect? But in the end, of course, we have today's update from Russian Defense Ministry, and as you can see yourself, today alone, another 825 tanks, 11 APCs, and as you can see yourself, the 15,750 KIAs up to this in October alone of the armed forces of Ukraine. Plus, in the last week, including today, I believe there were 4. So altogether, you will correct me, I'm quoting from the memory, but I believe it was 12. 2 days ago, today and yesterday, they shut down another 4. So you have those, remnants of the Ukrainian Air Force trying to attack. They're getting shut down. And so when you look at this, I mean, what can I say, guys? You just have to keep, again, as I already constantly repeat, keep an eye on the larger price. And Larry Johnson correctly stated, United States is nearing its Suez Canal, Suez crisis. I would even go further. It's already happened. But for now, we're just living, because we're living day by day. We do not understand the historical times. We do not feel it, because for us, even the week is some kind of significant time period. But the reality on the historical and geopolitical terms is just instant. You just cannot even blink of an eye. And so we'll have to wait and see how it basically forms itself. And of course, at this stage, Larry is correct. United States is in no position, and it's already damaged beyond repair geopolitically. And I would say that we have to talk at some point of time about a little bit about military porn. I know many people love it, but I'll be talking about the military technology, and fact is how dramatically United States fell back. And I'm talking, it is absolutely stunning. So this is for today, guys, and those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. Those who can afford, please buy me a coffee or two, or support me on Patreon. You have every data, which you need below this video. And what can I say? Have a nice rest of your weekend, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.